All right. First of all, thanks for hosting me. I've been working with Max. We have a long-term friendship. We were colleagues in the past. I'm happy to be back in this house. I've been working in Zalando for so many years before I went to Native Instruments. So who does know Native Instruments? Wow, cool. Who knows the Machine? Great. Who doesn't know the Machine? Maybe to see if... So should I do the demo or not? That's a question if everybody... Yeah. All right, so to tell you a little bit about Native Instruments, we're a music company, so we're empowering music producers, DJs, the whole music industry runs on top of Native Instruments. The tools that we build, the instruments, the machines for music producers and DJs for many different music genres like electronic music in general, techno, hip hop, EDM, worldwide. I want to show you one of our instruments to get an idea of what kind of software and hardware we're building. So this is the Machine, for example. It's a hardware device connected to our Machine software. Maybe we can switch to see the software on the screen. So this software is used to create music, to create beats. And I'll show you just one example of how to create one of our sounds. So Machine now is running on step mode. I just loaded a kit, so you have hundreds of kits. I would just own the 808 Southern kit, one of my favorites, and we'll just go in step mode. Pick first of all, the kick, and just go in step mode and just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe change the sound a little bit and go for a snare, and maybe just step them here. You can always play live and add to that, but I would just, for easiness, I would just go to the step mode and just add some hats. So within a few minutes, you have a bass for a techno track. I will stop here. There's a lot you can do with this Machine, or maybe I can add something more, so to show you a little bit what it does. You can go for effects and maybe add a reverb. So you can add adding a reverb, you get a little bit of more sound, you add more effects to what you do. All right, enough with the music and back to data. If you have any questions about the Machine or are interested in it, please approach me after the talk. But we're here to talk about data. All right, I gave you a quick view on what kind of software, hardware do we build. So our company exists for more than 20 years in Berlin, in Kreuzberg, right across the street. We've been doing this for 20 years, and it was the rise of the techno in Berlin. And until now, we're still a running business and going globally and very successful. But we've been doing stuff for 20 years the old way. And we now in a transformation phase where we want to use more data and understand more about our users and hit a bigger market and try to approach more people with our products and not just music nerds. And that's why we started a data team 8 months ago. Some of our products look like this. So for making beats, for making music, a lot of people who make film music or advertisement or beats or tracks for clubs or play live use our stuff. And usually our consumers have home studios that look somewhere like this. So mixed with some synthesizers, some drum machines, some DAW for playing music. And this is our main consumer. And why we build data? Because we want to understand more about our consumer and how to serve our customers better. Maybe before I talk more about Native Instruments, I would say what I do. So I was a data engineer in Zalando, and I worked in search. I worked in building the product search engine or the product availability layer. And now I'm working as a product lead for Native Instruments for the data analytics teams. And I'm part of a transformation now that is happening in a company that exists for 20 years, changing the way we build our products, the way we understand our consumers, and how to use data and become more modern. So the transformation that we're doing is part of it in the product, so how we build our products, and in marketing, so how we present our products to others. And this is one of the two things that we face our consumers with, and we want to bring those together and understand more about the user and collaborate together to present a better product that is easy to use. I'm going to refer to this example from my past. Who knows this? Who have seen this before? No, this is not the space shoe. This is the 360 shoe, which was an idea in the past. And I remember this when I was working as a data engineer in Zalando, that when we did this, we were very excited about it. Super excited. It's amazing. It's going to change selling shoes forever. You get to see the shoe like rotating. You get to see the whole picture. And we invested a lot. We created, took pictures from all directions and created this feature, where you rotate around the pictures and hired people in content creation to create this. And we rolled it out. But what we learned after we rolled it out, that the effect on sales in comparison to this picture was no difference. It was no difference at all. But what we lose here is that we pay a lot of money, getting all this content, creating all these pictures, and people creating all these features and presenting that. This is a lot of cost that we carry, and we thought that this brings something to our customers, but what we learned, that it doesn't. And this is the importance of measurement. A lot of the stuff that we get excited about, and this is something that I learned from Zalando, are great ideas, but do they bring something to our consumer? That's something we have to test and validate. Not every feature is worth it. And this is something that we do in Native Instruments. So we build a lot of stuff, and we have a really innovative piece of hardware and software in a creative space. So it's not a shoe, it's not a t-shirt. This is something that you use to create music. And we have to be very, very strategic on what we build and what we put in there. And that's why I want to talk not about data, I want to talk about decisions. So when I took the job to lead a data analytics team, it was an engineering job. I'm leading a team of engineers that are going to provide a data architecture that is going to help the company learn more about the consumer to take strategic decisions. But what I realized is that with the data architecture alone, you don't take strategic decisions because it's only architecture. You need the culture behind it. And this is where I learned that the decision process is part of my job, is to understand how people make decisions. So that's why I did my research. And I now would tell you that an adult human makes around 35,000 decisions per day. A lot of them are business strategic decisions. If you're a software architect, if you're a product owner, if you're an engineer, all the time you take a lot of decisions. Which feature to build, which market to hit, which marketing campaign to start. All of these are decisions that you make. And it's our job as data engineers or data product owners or a data organization is to make sure that the service we provide is making people take the right decisions. So it's not only engineering, it's also culture. That's why I was looking at how we make decisions as a human. So when we make these 35,000 decisions per day, there's a process. It happens in milliseconds. We never think about it, but it happens all the time. Picking a water from there, picking a water or a beer, picking a cola or a mate, going to work at 8 or 9, doing sport or not. These are all decisions that you make. And every time when a question comes to your head, you have a question, then you have few different courses of action, then you have evaluation. Should I do this or that? What happens if I take a cola? What happens if I take a beer? You evaluate it, and based on that, you take a decision, you execute it, and after you execute it, you learn something from it. Maybe it was a bad idea to drink a beer. Maybe it was a good idea and you had some fun. So you learn from it, you keep it in mind, and for the next meetup, you know what to do at 8 o'clock. So this decision journey it is what's interesting for me. How our people, how our product owners, how our marketing managers, how people in Native Instruments do take these decisions. And the most important part is this valuation process. Again, so what is this valuation process? This is the psychology of decision making for humans. So there are 3 ways we all value the decisions where we're taking, so the different options. One is Pavlovian, and this is usually the compulsive decisions that you cannot control, like smoking a cigarette after you eat. Sometimes you cannot control that. Or seeing everybody drinking a beer, and this triggers you. I also want to drink a beer. Or eating the chocolate, although you shouldn't eat the chocolate. So all these trigger decisions that you do without even thinking about it, these are Pavlovian decisions. Mostly they're unhealthy for you. And there are the habitual decisions where your mind is just saving energy, so you go to the supermarket and buy the same cereal, or you go to the bar and order the same beer, because you don't want to think about which one should I take. Is this lager? Is this pills? You don't want to think about it, so you just take what you always used to. So this is a habitual decision. And finally, there's the goal-directed system, which is the most important one, where you actually think and evaluate your options. And this is something as engineers we do all the time. But sometimes also we put our habitual decisions like, yeah, I like this technology or I like this tool, and without even evaluating it. So the goal-directed system is the most interesting one, and usually therapy, like human therapy, is to trying to take people from making this Pavlovian and habitual unhealthy decisions into a goal-directed system where you evaluate your options, so the person who takes good decisions have a better life. The same in business. The person who takes good strategic decision have a successful business. And this is why I tackle the point of how to make strategic decisions in native instruments. I look at the culture of 20 years of building software and hardware. It's very different from what we do in modern startups. This is an established business for 20 years, carry a lot of baggage, a lot of culture from the past, and now is a time of transformation to make something new out of it. So I'm looking at the enemies of strategic decision making. Time pressure, you're always on time, you have to release, you have strict date. Overdependence, you're waiting for someone to take the decision for you because you cannot take the decision alone. Isolation, you work in your silo alone, not connected to the rest of the company or the rest of the universe. Lack of focus, people want to achieve different stuff at the same time. Lack of data. So usually when you have data, this is something also marketing people do. They give you less data because when you don't have information, usually you make a habitual decision. So if you have a subscription-based model and you don't get a lot of information, usually you take the same habitual decision over and over. But when I give you more information, then you start to value your options. Then you make a goal-directed decision. This happens also for our employees. If they don't have data, they just take the same decisions over and over. Is this better or bad for the business? So lack of data is very important. And cognitive biases, and this is the most important one. We come with a lot of biases about the tools that we used in the past. I like Cassandra, you like Elasticsearch, I prefer Flink, you like this, and we bring this stuff, this cognitive biases based on stuff that we carry, experiences that we have, and we bring into the discussion. And now I understand back to what is our role as a data organization. So I focus on the last two, lack of data and cognitive biases, and I leave the rest for the organization to figure out. And that's why I want to share with you this. So a marketing manager from the company Slack was on parental leave, and he was searching the same topic, cognitive biases and how people use this. And he categorized them in 4 different categories. One to deal with handling information, one with handling the meaning of things, one for handling time pressure, and one for handling memory. So our mind usually try to spare its energy and use these cognitive biases to make quick assumptions about the world and opinions that we bring on the table. This is your baggage. This is your information that you carry. And by that, sometimes you take the wrong decisions. I share this for you to maybe look at it. There's a lot of information in there. I would really suggest you would notice yourself that every day in your life, not only on the work day, a lot of people bring these biases with. I will just focus today on some of the ones that impact creativity and innovation, because this is the one we bring in the business day. As a data organization, I'm not interested how you do this at home, how you take your decisions, whether you smoke or not, and how you deal with other people. I'm interested in what you do in the workspace. So some of these cognitive biases, for example, action bias. Action bias is an example when you have a meeting and it's about to end, and then we quickly have to take an action, like we didn't reach something. It's like, all right, let's put some action items on and you quickly decide 2, 3 things, and like, yeah, we're gonna work on these actions, without evaluating or understanding what is the impact of what happened there. You actually quickly put something there and moved on. Maybe to look on few other more. So what do we have? Authority bias. This is a very important one. So you have a lot of authority figures in every organization, and whenever you have them in a workshop, when they say an opinion, a lot of people follow this opinion because the authority figure have put a statement. And you notice it a lot in workshops that people would repeat the same thing or adopt the same idea immediately. Two ones that I like to talk about in every workshop, and I really spread this in our organization, are the anchoring and status quo. So the anchoring bias is that when we have a creative discussion and I anchor you to an idea. So the first thing that I said is the base of the conversation. So I already anchored you to some idea, and everything coming after, we're building on top of it. Similar to it is the status quo. So you want to create a new solution, a great idea, and then instead of starting from where you want to get there and what is the optimal solution, you start from what you have, the spaghetti you have at the moment. You start from there, try to describe the situation, and then come with a solution out to it. But you already tied yourself to the status quo instead of looking at the optimal solution and find a way to get from this situation to the optimal one. So these are two important ones I see a lot in a lot of workshops and a lot of creative ideas that happen. Or the framing one, also dealing with data. So a lot of people show you data framed, so number of downloads, and we celebrate that. Some vanity metrics, this is framing. Or picking, it's just like news, you know, picking some items that tell you a specific story and framing it. Sometimes people do this out of, like, with their intention and sometimes unintentionally, that they frame stuff, build a story, show it in reporting and to executive leaders, and they just frame a story that is not real. It's not the full picture. And based on that, we take wrong decisions. Similar to it is confirmation bias. This is the one, the famous one that we all know. I just hear and I like, and I will say back or report the stuff that confirms with my idea. So if the numbers that come out confirms what I think, I celebrate it. If it's not, then the data is wrong. So I talk about this stuff because this, if you don't establish this culture in every organization that you deal with data, the engineering approach, it doesn't matter how successful you are from an engineering architectural perspective. If you don't have the culture to back up how this data is going to be consumed in any organization. So what is our business as a data organization, as a data team? Is the strategic decision making, providing the tools that would help people take this decision making. So the value that we bring is not the architecture, is actually the decisions that are taking based on the tooling that we provide. All right, I take a little pause here. And I want to ask you a question. Does anybody feel connected to any of those? Do you feel that these enemies of strategic decision making are relevant to you where you are? And don't be scared to raise your hands. I'm only on the camera, no one else. All right. Yeah, okay, hands are coming slowly out. All right, cool, good to know. All right. So I'm going to talk about the data vision and native instruments. So we started 8 months ago. When I joined the company, we were still looking at what are we going to do there? What is the data landscape? What tools do we have? And we figured out that there's a lot of different data tools. A lot of people consume data in many different ways. They're not like an aligned terminology in what the KPIs means and what the strategy is. And the first thing that we wanted to approach is to build a vision. So instead, yeah, we looked at the status quo to understand what's happening, but we didn't anchor ourselves so much there. So we said, all right. Let's understand what the products do, how the users behave, and let's build a vision and then come back from what is there as the status quo and try to find a way to take it from here to there. So looking at the different sections of the organization, we decided to split our insights team. So looking from the top, how are we going to serve the teams into different areas? So we have the marketing area, sales. There's on one side is the business operation. On the other side, the products, like these products, software and hardware. It's interesting to get the analytics out of it, how people use it, how people go on our webpage, what kind of content they buy. And then in the middle, we have the user. So focus on the user analytics. The vision looks like this. So we have different data coming from different locations. So from marketing data, products, central services, customer support, business intelligence, and we want to put this in one data lake where we can serve our customers. But as I said, the data lake alone, if we don't have the culture, doesn't help us. So I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to construct the data architecture as fast as I can to explain what we're building in Native Instruments. So looking down at the bottom, these are the different data types that we have. So products data, like the software ones, mobile apps also do the same thing, so Machina and some DJing software, central services that we have, web, marketing data, sales, support, and user data. And we have an ingestion services layer where we have an event bus behind these things, but we have here replacing also a tracking provider that we had in the past, Mixpanel, and we decided to build our own in-house solution, and we're already more than halfway in this layer to provide collecting all the tracking data from our products and mobile apps. Then we have a storage layer where we're completely operating in GCP, so we have our data lake where we collect all the raw data from the different services, and then we load that into our data warehouse into BigQuery. On the top layer, there's the consumption layer where we have an API to get the data out, a reporting tool, we're using Metabase, looking for a customer data platform to communicate with the marketing teams, and on the right side, 2 tools for data scientists, a catalog for the data, and an analysis tool to answer the hard questions. Data quality is a very important thing. When an organization is new, a lot of doubt about the data, because a lot of bad news come out. When you run, suddenly you didn't have any information and suddenly you shed the light on a lot of stuff. And the first thing that you get back with these biases, I don't trust the data. And one important factor to build this trust is to have data quality. That's why we have a track completely for covering data reliability and quality. Also, we have a whole track for governance, dealing with GDPR, guidelines, how to work with data as a product team, how to build tracking events, and data security, data management, consent management, and all what is needed to govern the data inside Native Instruments. And finally, culture, as I said. So culture is not just the word. Culture needs a lot of engagement from the data team with the organization. And that's why we have 3 different ways to deal with the teams. One is the native data owl. The data owl, we just took the owl for the wisdom, but this is an initiative from the data team that we do a lot of trainings, a lot of talks to onboard people how to use data, what do KPIs mean, release our stuff, talk to people, and present always and onboard people and teach them about data more and more. Then we have the data book. It's a website, a knowledge base, where we usually explain what our KPIs are, what our dashboards mean, align the people on the terminology, and have one central knowledge base where we record our talks and everything. So it's just like a website, it's a service website, where you go and can understand how to work with the data team and what service do you get out of it. And finally, the data community of practice, where we have a meeting where we discuss, just get questions from all around the organization on how to deal with different data topics. So this is how we tackle culture. Where are we so far with our architecture? So it's still a little bit on the way from the big picture to that one. So we have the ingestion service with the quality. We're working hardly on culture because this is the base foundation, and also getting requirements from people to teach them how to give us requirements on what kind of strategic targets they want to set. And now we have one reporting tool where we kind of align the whole organization to show all the data that is spread out from everywhere in one tool and have one source of information where people can rely on. How much time do I have left? 2 minutes. Then I would stop here and take questions.
Okay, so yes.
Or I can play some music instead.
So questions. Okay, I'm coming to the back here. No questions up front? Come on.
Hi. Really good talk. Thank you. And so your data scheme seems pretty elaborate. So I was just curious, how does your data team look like the structure of it, in terms of data engineers, data scientists, and analysts, etc. Thanks.
Sure. So at the moment, we're still small. So we have a data infrastructure team responsible for the hosting and building of all this, like data transformation and all of this stack from an engineering perspective. So all the tooling that is needed for tracking and consuming data, ingesting and consuming data, is owned by the data infrastructure team. And we have an insights team which is responsible for interpreting the data, supporting the teams, making sense out of it, bringing the culture change, defining KPIs, setting targets with the teams, and so on.
Do we have another question? Yes.
Hi, thanks, great talk. I was wondering about the biases. So you said like the foundation actually lays on the culture. Like, what do you do to spread this information about the biases across the whole team? What are the practices? Yeah.
As I did, I was on stage talking about biases in a talk in front of the whole company on the biases that I hear. So I hear a lot of statements in going into meetings. The user does this. I've been doing this for 10 years. The user wants this. Our user base like to get this feature. So I hear these statements a lot, and that's why to change this discussion, and that's why we present this stuff. They teach about cognitive biases. What does it mean? How would be the right way to ask a question, to ask a data question? Because also a lot of stakeholders, it's still also like data maturity in any organization. A lot of stakeholders ask questions like, I would like to have this data, or I would like to run this survey and ask these questions. But this is not what you actually want. What you actually want is an insight, a report, how it's done, what questions are asked, which data is checked. Maybe leave the experts do that. And now we try to teach the organization on forming the right questions, forming a research idea. What decision do you want to take? And the most important part is how are you going to measure it? Because if we give you the information and you took a decision and you cannot measure the impact after the decision, then the decision also was no value. So we do culturally a lot of talks, engage with a lot of people. That's why we have this cultural track where we have Q&A sessions. We do a lot of talks in the organization. It's part of our backlog to drive this cultural change and try to see where we have issues and approach it. And so far, people really like it. So we have these cognitive biases on some rooms also printed out, and people start to use this in the conversation. So this is going to build a better culture for working with data.
So we have time for one final question. Yes, I see a hand in the back.
I just recently chatted in Zalando with a colleague, and there's this topic of data literacy coming up, and I think the FU has a research project coming up, and a colleague of mine told me that Zalando also is interested in this topic, so maybe it's a good time for networking, because it sounds exactly what you're preaching here, that we need data culture and data literacy. And my original question, I saw you using BigQuery potentially because Google Analytics Suite and all these tracking solutions that are integrated. I recently did research and I found that a massive amount of sessions are blocked by ad blockers. So when we speak about data literacy and data quality, what is your insight there? So
I didn't hear that. Massive
because
what?
it's a bias, right? Data. When we speak about tracking data, we see that a lot of end users, especially like for music industry or for Zalando, are from this cohort which potentially uses ad blockers. And I
choose what?
Choose ad blockers.
Ad blockers.
What is your insight there? Because this is for me also bias, and I found surprisingly many colleagues not considering that at already the edge of the user contact losing information. So we potentially have a lot of clicks from older people which are using outdated browsers, right? And a lot of people say, yeah, I actually cannot measure, so I cannot know. This is really interesting. When I compare like with Akamai logs, then I see more interaction there, right?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm not sure I can answer this one, to be honest.
Okay, so maybe we'll take that question offline. Yeah, okay. Was there a last question? Yes.
It was sort of a double question, but between the data lake and the data warehouse, what's in there? And also there's a couple of soft questions on the right, like GDPR stuff. Do you have a methodology for that?
For GDPR?
Well, the other things as well.
For the other things. Yeah, for different ones, different things. So GDPR was one important thing that we started with in the first beginning. So this was something that we needed to have direction. What are we going to offer to talk with the different also stakeholders? What are we going to build? Who are we going to serve? What are our rules? Because we can do everything. We can track everything and we can personalize and target. So the first thing that we did, we created a work group across the organization and laid down the rules for the GDPR, had a consultant also from outside. And once we had this, This was the documentation that this is okay, this is our constitution for what the data team is going to build for the next 3 years. And based on that, the consent management service or data lifecycle was based all on the rules that we defined in the beginning on the GDPR work group. Yeah, so for us was really the foundation also was to, first of all, talk about the legal topic and how does this fit in our industry. All right, thanks a lot.